eagle stands somewhat disengaged from the juniper due to the faint ink applied to outline the tree trunk. Nevertheless, how romantic the idea is, and how pleasant to the eye the juniper tree is arranged. Every inch of the tree couldn't stand a second stroke of brush, which would have ruined the fluency of the artist's language. By utter contrast, the bird in Castiglione's picture is evidently of Western rather than Chinese style. Her hook-like claws embrace the rock top so firmly that one stops worrying about a potential fall. Her eye even retains a real-life stare that is cold and relentless. The Chinese intelligentsia wouldn't have tolerated what Castiglione had done if not for the fact that he was a foreigner after all. He, on the other hand, was undergoing a Chinese conversion, most evidently through the stiff and lifeless water flowing down the creek. That was the kind of awkward water neither an European nor a Chinese painting would have readily adopted. Well, we must allow the artist to experiment. The idea of a young Jesuit being sneaked into the Qing court was initially for him to pave the way from the very top, impressing Christianity upon mandarins and emperors, endorsed by whom a brand new religious dynasty was to be raised out of the empire. Popes, cardinals, and emperors, the sort of nepotism Italians were best at for centuries. Castiglione's story fell somewhat short of that expectation, as he soon found himself too busy painting flowers and horses to promote the Messiah. At one point, he had so many horses to paint that it took him 4 years to complete just one hand scroll. The 100 Horses scroll starts with 3 herdsmen dressed in the Manchurian fashion in front of their tabernacle, wherein a guardian dog pokes his head out of the canvas to see if everything is under control. In the front, 2 pine trees typical of the artist's style provide shade for the horses underneath. Next to them, 2 groups of handsome horses, some thin, some fat, some grazing, others frolicking on the grassland, are joyful and full of strength. Far off in the back, a man in green is furiously trying to rope the rebellious white cove. Thanks to his loyal companion, the chestnut-colored fellow, he seems almost succeeding. And then the terrain rises in the background. There flows in a gentle river, at the bank of which another rebellious cove is violently bucking off the herdsman's control. Suddenly, the picture is interrupted by a cluster of trees, and nearby, a man is affectionately bathing his milk cow patterned horse in the tranquil water. Not far ahead, another group of horses are wading across the river, only to be received by yet another herdsman. The 3 freshly wetted horses at the end are so truthfully painted that their fur is almost shimmering in sunlight. The prodigal work is nearly 8 meters long and 1 meter high. I'm holding a miniature version. It remains till this day one of the most recognizable masterpieces in China's art history. The realism and animation created in the idyllic scene are to a remarkable level ahead of its time, that the whole narrative is more film-like than pictorial. To give the story an explicit scale, the artist had mindfully put a beginning and an ending to the scroll. 3 men at the beginning and 1 man waiting at the end. That concludes Castiglione's tribute to the Renaissance, that man is the measure and controller of all things. The artist was to paint more horses for the aging emperor, and later for his son, the younger Emperor Qianlong, who was believed to be a great advocate of horsemanship and heroism. Ayusi scattering rebels was painted 27 years later when the artist was at the old age of 67, depicting the valiant cavalry officer Ayusi, himself a Mongol ethnic, loyal to the emperor, charging with a spear fearlessly into the Mongol rebels. The battle was bloody and the victory decisive. In admiration of the warrior's gallantry, the young emperor ordered a picture be painted to memorize the act of heroism. The cavalier crouches to a powerful position, ready for the one strike that was to make a name of himself in history. Holding the spear tight underneath his armpit, he was determined to vent onto the enemy all the strength generated by his strenuous horse, which looks as if it was a twin brother of the one from the 100 Horses 27 years ago. That was Castiglione's idea of a galloping horse in full speed. With 4 hooves off ground and body stretched, the animal had almost never made a similar appearance in Europe paintings until Castiglione's time. However, in Jericho, we did finally see something of high resemblance in the 1823 Derby in Epsom. Jericho himself a great fan of the equine animal.